Been a long time coming, but I finally got it made. All 45 MCU projects ranked from the worst to the best. Please note that everything that I will say in this video is just my very own opinion. My name is SW Nation, and you are free to comment down below your very own ranking of all of the MCU projects ranked from the worst to the best, just like me, or you could do your favorite. Look, this ranking took a very long time because I had to edit, I had to shoot, I had to write, all while dealing with the finals month at school. So it has been a hectic month, but I finally got this ranking made on top of the other videos that I had to make during the drop weeks, like Wonka and Aquaman. But I finally got it made. I know What If Season 2 is running right now. Don't worry, I'm going to have a video corresponding with that, show as well. So, look, I finally got this ranking made. That's a positive. With all of that being said, guys, like, comment, and subscribe. And let's get right into this epic ranking. At the bottom of our list, number 45, She-Hulk Attorney at Law. A show that won me over from the first trailer and from the first 4 episodes. I was very much enjoying the show from the first 4 episodes. I was so invested in the show and its concept about a woman with powers of the Hulk but in the courtroom. A legal comedy series that dealt with adult issues but also dealt with the superpowered cases weekly. It could have went in that Friends or Ally McBeal level where she's dealing with her relationships, her sex life, or just dealing with superpowered beings in the courtroom, and that concept is explored in only some episodes. For the most part, this show felt anticlimactic. Everything that we watched leading up to the finale didn't matter because Jennifer just labeled it as lazy writing to Kevin Feige. You tried to be clever having her explore Marvel Studios in the end, but it comes off disrespectful and dissatisfying to all the people that watched 9 weeks of this show. The show bounced around too much for there to be a singular story for me to even criticize. And no, I'm not one of those weirdos who think the twerking scene is a negative.
He almost tasted that. Num 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 num, eat it up. Go play okay, 3, 2, 1.
44, Secret Invasion, a completely disappointing series that hurts my heart. That again, like other shows, start off great, but just ends in a whimper. The central problem here is that you now introduce this god-level ability in the MCU to where everyone can be a superhero with just sitting in a chamber. In fact, they made Emilia Clarke Skrull the most powerful being in the universe. Someone who even has the powers of Thanos? Dude, this show could have been the grounded spy espionage event that a post-blip Nick Fury worked for. He's now even more cynical. And to be fair, I liked the villain of Gravik, and I thought some of the Skrull reveals were kind of cool. But this show definitely suffered from that god-awful 6-episode event thing. They even killed off a major character in the MCU, and nobody cares. Number 43 is Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. 2023 MCU just keeps getting disappointing for me. Another disappointment, man. I loved Kang in this film. But for Marvel to hype up this big bad of the next phase and literally have a film titled after him for him to be defeated by ants is very anticlimactic. The grandiose scale just doesn't feel like Ant-Man. After 10 months, I can't tell you a single thing besides Kang that I liked about this movie. In fact, it feels like a fever dream now. When you're talking about forgettable, this movie is just forgettable. Number 42, Thor: Love and Thunder. Man, I really enjoy some things about this movie. It's not terrible at all, and it's very much watchable. But I'd be lying if I didn't say that if Ragnarok was at an 80%, this movie cranks the comedy up to a 180%. The film is so goofy that it falls into parody. And I kind of see this as a Saturday morning cartoon where Thor has to save the kidnapped kids from the big bad man, Gore the God Butcher. It kind of sucks that they casted Christian Bale in this, and he's given virtually nothing to work with. This is the best Jane and Thor has ever been, and there is an emotional story about love and how Gore sees the different gods versus Thor. But this movie feels like Taika just took his first draft and just started rolling cameras. Number 41, Spider-Man: Far From Home. I used to love this movie. It was the best Spider-Man movie to me when I first walked out of the theater. To me, it's enjoyable and funny. I think I laugh a lot at this movie. Very watchable too, but it's definitely the worst Spider-Man movie for me right now. I definitely think that it's the worst Spider-Man movie, and I'm not going to talk ad nauseum about it. I love the Mysterio sequences, but it's hard to call this a Spider-Man movie when it feels like, and I've always said this, Peter Parker and his friends on a road trip. Our top 40 list, Loki, Season 1. At the time, did it move the MCU forward? Yes. At the time, was it my favorite Disney Plus MCU show? Yes. But now it's not. We introduced He Who Remains in the TVA. The world building of this season worked for me, and of course seeing the different variants of Loki was always pretty fun. But Sylvie did get a little bit annoying by the end. I will hype this season up because we did get introduced to He Who Remains in the TVA and introduced to the performance of Jonathan Majors as Kang, but I have never had the urge to rewatch this season since 2021. I find most of this season to be boring anyway. Number 39, Moon Knight. I wanted to love this show. I desperately wanted to love this show. The performance of Oscar Isaac works. He's one of the best actors in the MCU right now. Every time that he's on screen works for me. The Egyptian iconography, when episodes display it, is exactly what I wanted from the show, from an atmosphere standpoint. When it comes to fundamentally everything else that this show had going for it, it failed at. Why the hell did they cut from every action sequence when they marketed this show as, oh, we're not holding back, oh, we're really going there? Clearly you did. I thought Moon Knight was MCU's answers to Batman. Instead, this was a PG-13 Deadpool made by the CW with the gloss of an MCU production. 38 is Dark World, a film I just don't hate. At some point, I know I did. For sure, it's painfully mediocre. It's in focus, performances are all good, and the action is well handled, but it's painfully mid. I can enjoy it, but there is little substance here. This is where they really started hammering out the Infinity Stones with the introduction of the Ether. I think all of that is pretty good. The scenes on Asgard are my favorite in the franchise because Asgard still had that golden feel to it, but for some reason, it reminds me of Game of Thrones, which shouldn't be a surprise because the director directed a couple of those episodes. I like the idea of this being a Romeo and Juliet story, but unfortunately Marvel was still trying to set up future films while telling individual stories. So the introduction of the Dark Elves just fell flat and bland, but I did appreciate the action when it came to Mjolnir flying back to Asgard whenever Thor jumped to a new realm. I thought that was an interesting way to do it, and the score just didn't disappoint either. 37, Ant-Man and the Wasp. I used to love this movie, then I used to hate this movie, but now I slightly enjoy it. There are some great laughs and some fun sequences that try to be as clever as the first film. Paul Rudd is just as charming as ever, but the shining light is that we get to introduce a team player in the Wasp. While not as funny or great as the first film, this movie ups the antics while also being kind of anticlimactic after Infinity War. The MacGuffin storyline works along with the heist elements before. Ant-Man and the Wasp isn't bad, but it isn't exactly memorable either. 36, Captain Marvel. I like this movie. It's good, man. I don't have the same problems with it as most people do. Some parts of it does feel bland, but overall, the less cynical Nick Fury is a lot of fun, and the 90s aesthetic provides a new atmosphere for the MCU to have fun in. Unfortunately, Brie Larson is not as confident in the role yet, and we as the audience don't feel connected to her by the end because she doesn't even know herself. This makes the movie very odd, in my opinion. But I'd be lying if I didn't love seeing Captain Marvel jetpack joyride herself through cruise ships. That scene has always and will always give me chills. 35, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Look, another film I used to hate as well, and I truly still believe there are some distasteful things in it, but it's just so funny. It's the funniest Guardians film, and while crass and crude, they feel more like a family in this one than any other Guardians film. It's one of the funniest MCU films, and when it comes to the Yondu subplot, this movie excels. When it gets into Ego, it doesn't for the most part. Once we meet Ego, nothing really happens until the third act. The film just feels so cynical and mean-spirited at times. To me, I feel like Marvel has so much trust in James Gunn, they really let him do whatever he wanted, and it's all displayed on screen. I will give it this though. When Yondu sacrifices himself, it is one of the most impactful and emotional deaths in the entire MCU.
No! No! Oh, no!
Number 34, The Marvels, the newest addition to the MCU, isn't even that bad for real. I very much enjoyed this movie. It's funny, frantic, and gets straight to the point. I'm not gonna hate it or call it woke because I hate women like some incels do. It's good enough, and the shining light here is definitely Iman Vellani as Kamala Khan. I thought Carol was actually good in this movie, and the body switching provided some fun stakes in the movie. But I keep using that word, fun. Because essentially that's what this movie is, and that's all it offers. Just fun. It's fun, but at what cost? At number 33 is Hawkeye. As a Christmas series, I think it worked for giving us the spirit of Christmas. It's virtually a small-scale story about a man trying to come home for Christmas. I like Kate Bishop. She's engaging, and Jeremy Renner is always good as Hawkeye. But the problem here is that stupid 6-episode format. I really felt like this show spent most of its time doing nothing. The story was barely there, and apparently in my mind, the concept for an Archer series featuring Hawkeye dealing with his past crimes as the darker character Ronin set during Christmas was too asking for Disney Plus and Marvel. At number 32 for me is Eternals. Why do people hate this movie? It's the most gorgeous looking MCU film, and I thought on the big screen it is the biggest MCU film and one of the greatest to see in the theater. Unfortunately, not all the characters are given a chance to shine, and we're constantly reminded that they are a family, but no one ever acts like it. I love the mythological point of view this movie goes for, and it tries to be more biblical than people give it credit for. I love the grand scale of this movie and hate how people turned on it. Number 31 is Iron Man 2, another one of those fun but at what cost films. Like, Iron Man 2 is the first MCU film I ever watched, but after years, I just come to appreciate other films more. Not to say this movie is horrible, like, I love the dialogue, RDJ is great as ever, maybe a little too unlikable and unhinged, but still carries the movie with his charm. The action sequences are bigger, and the film just has this snazzy pop to it with every scene. The problems lies within the plotting and how it's well documented that Jon Favreau wanted 3 years and Marvel only gave him 2, so he worked with what he got and kind of made a mashup of different movies that could work as their own, just not together. In the reign of the MCU book, they even say that RDJ's improvisation on set caused the film to constantly change and introduce new plot lines. This movie is fun, of course, but it's a testament to Marvel wanting to set up a universe while also trying to tell individual stories. Kicking off my top 30 list is What If. The concept is what interested me in this series. What if Agent Carter became Captain Carter? What if T'Challa was abducted by aliens instead of Peter Quill? I don't think this series disappointed me at all. It very much delivered what the name suggests. Elseworlds content in the MCU adjacent. It's just a cool thing to exist, and the novelty of seeing them assemble their own team of Avengers provides a whole lot of fun. 29 is The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, a series I didn't like at first, but not gonna lie, it's good. I don't like Carly, and I think that she's whining and a hypocrite, but if anything, this is the one series to be what the MCU marketed the Disney Plus series to be, a 6-hour movie. The question of what a black Captain America would look like and how that black man sees himself as Captain America taking on this mantle is an arc that many people don't talk about as they should. 28 is Black Widow, a solid MCU film that provided some great action and spectacle. It's a movie that should have come out in 2016, but better late than never, right? The comedy worked, and the new characters like Yelena are entertaining enough. The hugest issue here is Taskmaster. Not because she's a woman, but because she's a bad character. As spy thrillers go in the MCU, this one is solid enough. I had fun with it. I love this movie. 27 is The Incredible Hulk, a movie I don't hate. I don't think I ever hated this movie, but I did appreciate more MCU films than this one. As of this moment, this movie is pretty okay. Like, it's not an abomination, but it definitely has some blandness. Are some scenes boring? Yeah, but does it deliver on some cool Hulk action? Well, yes. I think Edward Norton works as Bruce Banner. I think the villain works as just a guy who's past his prime and is obsessed and, in more ways, fascinated by the Hulk and desperately wants that power. And while it's taken fairly seriously, there are ties to the 60s TV show that makes this movie a lot more campy for me. This is one of those Phase 1 films that just focus on telling a singular story. It doesn't do anything smashing, but it definitely doesn't feel like a monster of a film. Number 26, Ant-Man, a small adventure about a man who just wants to do right by his daughter. I love the fact that Scott Lang is just an everyman, thrusted into this superhero life. The scenes of him training with ants ranges from funny, but also to clever and just plain cool. I love the fight scenes on the train tracks and a tank being expanded into a huge size. that cleverness is what the other Ant-Man films were missing. This is my favorite Ant-Man movie. The jokes actually land for me, and the central theme of saving your home provides personal stakes that easily help us relate to this film and its titular character. Number 25 is Werewolf by Night. Like What If, another cool thing to exist. Not much to say about this project except the fact that I dare Marvel to do more of these. Obviously, we know they canceled the whole special presentations thing, so they may no longer do these. But man, I love the fact that we had a black and white project that told a singular story without having it connect to the entirety of the MCU. 24 is Iron Man 3, the first MCU film I saw in theaters, and come on man, this is a good movie. Dealing with the PTSD of Tony was a smart follow-up to the Avengers, and how this carefree man is dealing with an alien invasion. Everyone talks about the Mandarin twist, but it doesn't bother me as much. I mean, for years it didn't, and then finally Shang-Chi premiered, and sure enough, the real Mandarin was there. They even referenced Iron Man 3. I just think the performance of Ben Kingsley, and when we got glimpses of this performance, it worked out a lot. In fact, this was all in response to tackling the Mandarin without him being a potential racist caricature. Shane Black's dialogue works for Stark's snarky and quick-witted personality, and for the most part, the action sequences are some of the best in the MCU. The film took time to pause and let Tony save people out of a plane, which in some of these MCU projects, we don't get to see. 23 is Ms. Marvel, a show that I had no interest in checking out at all, but it could not have come at a more perfect time. I was wrong about this show. It's such a sweet series, and Iman Vellani is just charming as ever in the role of Kamala Khan. If they just focus on the plot of the first 4 episodes about her discovering her powers, about a Muslim Jersey superhero, and the family aspects, then this show would be higher. But of course, Marvel sabotages themselves by introducing that whack, clandestine, and Jen arc. Loki Season 2 is 22. This season comes out swinging. Once it starts, we are thrusted into this story that just breathes a scary aura about the arrival of Kang. We got all of the world building out of the way from Season 1, so now we can just focus on the imminent arrival of Kang. But as of today, Jonathan Majors has been found guilty and fired as Kang, but his performance in this season is one of the greats in the MCU. Every episode contributes to the story and gives minor characters like the Minutemen arcs to explore the lives that were taken from them. Boasting an incredible finale, Loki Season 2 felt like the great seasons of DC Legends to me. At 21, I have Thor. I love this film. I can't be like everyone else and not like this movie. Because how? How do you make a Thor film? And how do you have it believable enough that he exists in the same world as Iron Man? Obviously, there are some blandness in New Mexico. But to me, those are still fun scenes to have in the film, which further moves along Thor's journey. Learning to grow from that
vain, greedy, cruel boy
to a man. The Shakespearean grandeur has a gorgeous scope to it, making Asgard a beautiful place. While Chris Hemsworth doesn't feel as confident in the role yet, Kenneth Branagh's Thor delivers an entertaining fish-out-of-the-water experience filled to the brim with gravitas, but also a small-town energy that feels human, with an incredible sweeping score that makes you feel like you're flying. It's not only epic, but also dazzling. Kicking off my top 20 list for me has got to go to Guardians of the Galaxy, the Holiday Special. A very entertaining special presentation. That's exactly what it is. A holiday special featuring the Guardians of the Galaxy. James Gunn returns to craft a special that gives you a great feeling of Christmas and also adds depth to the character of Mantis and makes you love Drax even more. It's as much funny as it is heartfelt. Number 19 is Shang-Chi and the Legends of the Ten Rings. Something different in the MCU. I felt like this was a film that was so different in the first 2 acts that unfortunately they had to shift gears in the 3rd act, and they had to go right back to that MCU formula. A martial arts film in the MCU is exactly what I wanted and exactly what I got. But also we got some mythical aspects in there as well, with the best hand-to-hand fight scenes, a captivating villain, and might I may add, dragons. The newest Avengers origin story is one of the best MCU projects to come out of the post-Endgame era. Hopefully, within the next 1 year, we get to see Shang-Chi again, because I really love this character. Number 18 for me is Black Panther Wakanda Forever. How did Ryan Coogler do it? He took the most awful and tragic situation with his star passing and crafted a serious MCU film that serves as a nice follow-up to the first movie, but also his own story. Shuri's journey is a powerful and poignant one, with her taking on the mantle of Black Panther. This is an emotional project that had nothing but a heart poured into it. Unfortunately, with them killing T'Challa off screen, that means that they decided to shelve this character, rather than allow someone to pick up the baton for Mr. Boseman and carry on the legacy of live-action T'Challa. At 17, we have Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I love this sequel, man. Sam Raimi returns to the superhero genre in a fun and wacky way. This movie feels so fluid due to its camera movements. The color grading is so bright, and when it comes to the weird and horrifying side of Strange, Sam Raimi does a great job. The movie begs the question, are we and can we ever be happy? Prompting a nice character journey for Strange. It may not have went above and beyond in Multiverse, but I gotta say, it is definitely a character study. 16 is Doctor Strange. If Sam Raimi leaned into the campy and weird of the character, Scott Derrickson leaned into the mysticism of the character, which is why this one is better than its sequel. It's taken seriously and opens up the door of the MCU to the world of magic and mysticism, and the CGI provides some trippy visuals that are incredible to look at. If only it wasn't so microwaved in the MCU origin story template, it would be much higher. At number 15, we have Spider-Man Homecoming. I have talked ad nauseum about this movie as well as others on this list. And again, it's nice to see the MCU from a high schooler's point of view. We see students playing F, Marry, Kill with the Avengers. It's the most high school we've ever seen Spidey, and they never leaned into camp. They leaned more into the fundamentals about what makes him a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Number 14 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I'm not a big fan of animal cruelty, so that is definitely a turnoff from this movie. Other than that, it's a really great film. I actually really like it. James Gunn took away the mean-spiritedness of 2, and while it's the most serious and heartbreaking of the trilogy, this movie serves as a satisfying conclusion for the trilogy, but also for the rest of the Guardians. Number 13 is Captain America: The First Avenger. I mean, yeah, it rushes through the interesting part of his life, World War II, but to start this incredible trilogy, this movie rocks. I was never a big fan of First Avenger, but with the more mature mind, it introduces and gets you to love the character of Steve Rogers. The first hour is great, showing that Steve Rogers was a great man, way before the serum. Joe Johnston brings this period piece to the MCU that feels and looks massively different from the rest of the Phase 1 films. There's something not only charming about this movie, but also pretty cheesy and believable. 12. Avengers: Age of Ultron. I wish this film wasn't so full of setup for future installments. I mean, we have Civil War setup, Black Panther setup, Avengers 3, and even Thor 3 setup. Now, regardless of all of that, this movie is one that even Sean Chandler has to admit is ambitious yet flawed. Every time I watch this film, I like it a little bit more. The team's chemistry is through the roof. They actually feel like friends, and the dialogue between them is just as sharp as the first and sometimes almost feels natural. I feel like the cast just really were having a fun time on set, and when this movie was coming out, it just felt that way. The cast was back together again. This was round 2, and they were just having a whole lot more fun than they did the first time around. I appreciate the fact that this film wanted to go bigger and bigger with everything, like actions and stakes. We even have team-ups. It's only this low because I think other movies are better, but man, I love this movie. It's probably the most rewatchable MCU film. 11. Thor: Ragnarok. The funniest MCU film does a lot to revive the Thor franchise. Taika Waititi just had the best mix of humor and seriousness in this film, and it makes me wonder, why did Thor: Love and Thunder turn out that way? By making Thor funny, we were able to relate to him better than we ever did, but also they made him cooler than ever here, with him unlocking his true potential. The tone sometimes is all over the place. Some emotional moments are undercut by jokes, but man, I love Thor's personality and how he feels that he is the hero. And like I said before, when he finally unlocks his true power and takes the throne, chills, man, actual chills. This film is everything Love and Thunder wishes it was. Kicking off my top 10 list for me is Black Panther, the most mature and thematically rich film in the MCU. It's about a king protecting his kingdom, and I think that's one of the rawest things in the MCU. The world building of this country of Wakanda is one full of wonder and spectacle. The cultural appropriation impacted African Americans around the world. I was impacted by this movie when I dragged my mother and aunt opening night. I remember walking out inspired, and I even reviewed it on this channel. The CGI is always the one that the audience nitpicks, and yes, it is bad, but this film is only this low because I've seen it so many times. But with Chadwick Boseman's captivating performance and Michael B. Jordan's intimidating presence, this film is not only powerful, but perfectly crafted. 9 is WandaVision, a true exploration of grief. WandaVision starts Phase 4 off with a bang by actually feeling like a TV show. There's a mystery to how this hex was created, and we go through each episode each week, unraveling a new piece of information. It does wonders for exploring the character of Wanda and how she deals with trauma, and what she's experienced since her introduction in the MCU. The show is creative and unique, going through the different decades of television, doing great for the development of characters, but also feeling like a tribute to said television. Marvel on Disney Plus has never been able to reach these heights since 2021. 8th is Guardians of the Galaxy, just a heartfelt film in the MCU. Some don't know this, but James Gunn isn't actually fully responsible for this movie. He actually co-wrote it. And I feel like that's what makes this film work so well for me, because while I love James Gunn Unleashed, it was nice to see that he had someone there to anchor him, so it didn't go too far, like in Volume 2. What he is responsible for is making us care for these characters through an enticing soundtrack and incredible pacing. By the end of the film, these 5 loners become a team, and the core of the film is about these lonely characters sharing their pain. While it is still hilarious, Guardians of the Galaxy packs an emotional punch that was able to make us cry from a talking tree saying, "We are Groot."
We are Groot.
Number 7 is Spider-Man No Way Home, my favorite theatrical experience. The hype surrounding this movie was a very special time for me. It was the best MCU Spider-Man film because they finally decided to let him be Spider-Man by the end. It's a movie that's kind of a love letter to the on-screen Spider-Man. And when they finally come on screen, it's a celebration of them. They help the MCU Spidey learn what it truly means to be Spider-Man, and once those words are said for the first time,
and with great power, there must also come great responsibility.
it solidifies that this film and the trilogy serves as an origin story, turning Tom Holland's boy into a man, a Spider-Man. Some people say the story isn't the best and some have turned their backs on the film, but for me, I can't. The brutality of Green Goblin, tragedy of Aunt May, and triumphant return of Tobey and Andrew is some of the best Spidey stuff on screen. This is a Spider-Man film that you can truly call a crowd pleaser. Number 6 is Captain America Civil War, one of the most dramatic MCU films. It has a way of showcasing how each of our characters sees the Accords, and how that decision lines up with what we know about them. Marvel built the foundation in each Iron Man and Cap film, and did the work to make their conflict hit harder, because of their conflicting ideologies in the Avengers films. All of this tension collides in an action sequence that reminds me of when I used to play with my action figures, clashing my heroes together. The spectacle isn't the best part though. It's the earned drama by the end that allows the emotional moments of our heroes breaking up to happen. And even though it has half of the Avengers in it, it is very much a Captain America story, concluding the greatest trilogy in the MCU. Kicking off my top 5 list for me is The Avengers. Despite Joss Whedon's recent years, I have to say that he and Zach Penn are responsible for bringing The Avengers to life. The movie just feels fun, and it's an achievement of 4 years and 6 films. It's one of those movies you can only do one time, because the novelty of bringing together these wildly different tones and characters for the first time is just something truly special. The dialogue is witty, the action is whimsical, and it plays like an old-fashioned alien invasion story. This is where the MCU established their tone, and this movie forever changed the game for superhero films. The culmination of Phase 1 nowadays is just extremely underrated. Number 4 is Iron Man. The first MCU film is still one of the best. Phase 1 just had that it factor to it, where they actually took risks. This entire film is a risk, taking a chance on Robert Downey Jr., Jon Favreau, even themselves. Iron Man tells an incredible story about a man coming face to face with his own demons and mistakes and having to right his wrongs. As the first film, there wasn't an MCU to set up. They were able to only focus on a story about one man's journey. From the charismatic energy of RDJ to the practical suit, this movie excels in not only being a fun action blockbuster, but one of the most influential films to the superhero genre ever. Kicking off our top 3 list is Avengers Endgame, the biggest movie of all time that deserves the word epic. And for years, I thought it was like top 5. It being at number 3 just shows how much I really love this film and grown to love it more and more. It's the epic climactic event for the MCU and the final film in the Infinity Saga. Despite the Thor Bowski and Smart Hulk, there are a lot of things that I love in this film. It takes a trip through the MCU in the second act. It offers a satisfying conclusion for both Iron Man and Captain America. Please, Marvel, do not mess it up with whatever you're planning for Secret Wars. And the final battle is just fan service, but it's earned. To have every MCU hero on that battlefield fighting for Earth, it was an incredible theatrical experience. I have problems with this movie, though, but I can't deny that the two-parter punch of this and Infinity War is just incredible. My runner-up is Captain America: Winter Soldier. Man, I know a lot of you people may not agree, or maybe you will. I don't know. Winter Soldier is just top-tier Marvel for me. It's really the first time the MCU dipped their toes into genre blending. This is a 70s political thriller with the man out of time in the 21st century. In a trust-no-one story, this movie made me love Captain America. It's the movie that made him cool to me. The action is thrilling, the story is intriguing, and it's one of those movies that takes one of the biggest risks in the MCU in taking down S.H.I.E.L.D. and revealing Hydra was behind all of it. Winter Soldier takes the story seriously, but also has some levels of humor in the mix. If you don't love this movie, I seriously don't know why. But coming in at my number one is Avengers: Infinity War. Obviously, this was going to be number one. It's to pay off the 10 years worth of storytelling. All hands are on deck, and I think the Russos did an incredible job balancing all of these main characters with their differing tones and personalities. The pacing is perfect. Every character gets their moment to shine, and it does wonders for giving us more background on Gamora. I love crossovers, even in the Arrowverse, and seeing all of these different characters interact for the first time, like Iron Man and Doctor Strange, or even Peter Quill and Thor, it's just oh so satisfying. What else can I say about Thanos? He's the best MCU villain, and we can kind of see his side in this war. The Russos and Josh Brolin were able to bring out the humanity of a genocidal maniac through CGI, I may add. There's urgency in the plot, the spectacle is huge and spanning multiple locales, and in the end, the villain wins and the heroes lose, serving as not only a great first chapter to a two-parter, but also a satisfying ending to a great film. This is why Avengers: Infinity War has to come in at number one. Alright guys, that is it for this epic long ranking. Please know that everything that I did say in this video was just my very own opinion. My name is SW Nation, and you are free to comment down below your very own ranking of all of the MCU projects, all 45. You can even include I Am Groot in there. I don't care. From the worst to the best, just like me. Or you could just do your favorite. Please don't forget to check out that Twitter. That link is in the description, as well as that Marvel playlist. That link is also in the description as well. If this is the last video that you're watching on my channel, have a happy new year, and I will see you all next time. Peace.